My name is Irene MacWilliam and I live in Northern Ireland. Just to give a bit of the background, I was a baby when my mother had to escape from Malaysia, and we were refugees looking for somebody to take her, well, to take us all in return for her working. Um, for the first 5 years of life, I've lived with my mother, came back to Northern Ireland. Um, Parents, my dad had survived being a prisoner of war of the Japanese, but they decided to go back to Malaysia and put me to boarding school at 5 1/4 and didn't see them for 4 years. But I had to do all my own mending and sewing. So that was a basic introduction to textiles. Um, when they came home, I was 9 1/2, and my mother taught me to embroider and how to make my own clothes. And I so took to the embroidery that I would wake up at 5 and 6 in the morning and sit and do embroidery in bed. Um, they had taken me out to Malaysia for 3 years because I couldn't read. It was all emotional. I went to university later, but I did lots of sewing out there. Made my children's clothes, didn't really pursue embroidery in my teenage years. But later on, I was with a lot of friends doing upholstery, and they kept talking about embroidery and patchwork guilds. And I went to a meeting with one of them, and the person was showing applique cushions. And I thought to myself, goodness, I have a machine that has got a zigzag. I am sure I can do um, applique. So I came home and spent hours trying to draw a simple poppy and eventually asked one of my children. So I did lots of applique and playing with the machine. Um, and then one day my children said, "What are you going to do, Mum, when we leave home?" They went on to art college, so I had to get down to it and learn to draw myself. I'd always told them what I wanted. Um, One of the things you're interested in is where I find my inspiration. I think most of my inspiration comes from conversations, casual conversations. I am so interested in people because what I didn't say was that as soon as I caught up with my education at 12, I was sent back to Northern Ireland and didn't see my parents till I was 17. So this gave me an interest in people and I think an ability to get on with people. So I will talk to anybody and everybody at the drop of a hat and meet so many fascinating people whenever I go anywhere. I mean, I can just be in a shop and I'll end up conversing with people. The other way I get inspiration for pieces is when themes are set, and I just love that because I twist and turn the idea of the um, theme round in my head and try and get a way that I don't think other people will be trying. Particularly as that gives me more chance of being getting accepted for a competitive exhibition. I don't know. I think it's just a driving force, something that I have to do. Um, I am also very interested, not in politics of who is in um, parliament or leading any country, but the politics of families that are divided by civil war and that sort of thing. So I have a whole body of work to do with that, and it's in a collection, and lots of those pieces have been round the world because they're to do with um, lack of habitat taking over, driving people out of villages, that sort of thing. My workspace, I'm very lucky. I have a room, um, which I call my sewing room. The children call it my studio. Um, and I have everything I need here, bought over the years. Um, I have got paints, I've got dyes, I've got you name it, I've got it. And because nobody else needs this room, I can do whatever I like, pin things up and what have you. And when my grandkids were small, they were allowed to get their big toes level with the door, but never beyond that because I knew they'd be in danger of pins and needles. And they stuck by it, and even now they're always reluctant when they're grown up to come into it. Evolves. It depends. Sometimes when you're set a theme, you're set dimensions. So what I usually do is pin bits of newspaper together and lay them on the floor, and that sits around while the idea is twisting and turning in my mind, but it at least gives me some idea. Um, and some exhibitions are very strict about size. So in that case, I try to plan it that if I have to cut an inch or two or so many centimeters off sides or length, it won't matter. Um, I have a vague idea of what I want to do for an exhibition, for the exhibition piece. And most of my work, I usually have some sort of idea or theme to do with the planet, climate change, what have you. I have a complete exhibition with three-dimensional pieces to do with the sea and water, because as we all know, there are a lot of problems with what's happening in the oceans and around shores and lakes these days with all the algae and all that sort of thing. Um, the piece will evolve. I will maybe sort of turn over in my mind what sort of techniques I will use. But of course, I let it work itself out of my um, thinking, and there's nothing prevents me because I don't have all these wonderful sketches and things. There's nothing to stop me suddenly saying, "Oh no, I shall put I shall put that in here," or "No, I'll not do that." So it evolves. Ah, well, there's the difficult question. Can any artist tell you? Because part of that comes in if you're putting a price on it, and then you have to be realistic as to whether something sells. But I don't tend to think in that way because if I'm involved and very taken with what I'm doing, I just will sit and work at it um, and have plenty of tea breaks. My room is next to the kitchen, so it's very handy for just running in and getting a little snack to keep me going. I suppose, like most people, my biggest challenge is feeling that that I've expressed in fabrics what I'm trying to express, and if I've got a message, is it clear? Or I don't like it just to hit you in the face. I often like to have little hidden things. And I basically most enjoy when I'm using the machine as free machining. And then it's just as long as my thoughts go, because you can just let yourself go wild when you're doing free machining. To me, it's the easiest and most relaxing bit of making something, provided it's not an enormous piece, because I don't have a quilting frame or anything like that. Um, there's a type of work, mola work, done by the Panamanian Indians, And I've always admired that. They would have layers of fabric and they would cut away to to get colors, whereas I will layer different fabrics one on top of the other and cut them away. And so it's a case of having a basic outline of the duck shape or the three ducks as it was and arranging them, and then just putting the layers then of as I put various bits of fabric down, sort of thinking what would be a good contrast, what will a color will I do next, just layering and because I haven't at all cut and dried, there's always an excitement of is this going to work? Is that going to work? So that's as much as I can say. It's one of a number of pieces of that size to do with the sea and water, because as I've said before, concerns about the ocean and our lakes and rivers is a very pertinent thing at the moment. I can't remember what on earth I said, but I used to have to. I went to different houses during the school, different relatives during the holidays, because my parents were abroad. I mean, I didn't see them for years on end. Um, but one of them had young kids, young boys, and I used to take them to a duck pond, and I used to love that. There were all the different ducks there and children sailed boats. So sometimes the boats got stuck. So sometimes I had to wade out in, and all I could think of all the duck droppings that I squinching between my toes as I rescued their things. But I used to love the visit there and seeing all the different colorings on the ducks and the way they interacted with each other and minded their babies. Just think to be in such an amazing exhibition and to, just to have been asked to submit my piece was just, well, I don't think I've got over it yet. Sheer excitement, I think. You look at all the other artists' work, and as I say, I have two daughters who are artists in their own right and who also teach. And when I showed them all the other pieces, or when they looked at your link and saw all the other pieces, they were saying, "Wow, Mum, there are some great pieces there." So pride, and pride comes before a fall. I suppose just enjoyment and to think just about the environment and what we're doing to it, though there isn't an overt message in it. Ah, well now, as a teacher, I take a slightly different point of view. I would not start somebody doing traditional patterns. I would let them look at traditional patterns, try and do it if they wanted, sort of draw it freehand and not get hung up about seams matching and that sort of thing. And I would also say to them, start and try various techniques. Some you will like more than others. And don't let people put you down and tell you your work's not good enough. Because if your work goes into an exhibition and somebody comes to it, as happened to me, I went to an exhibition, um, a local one, and various people in the guild were exhibiting. Nobody had asked me to put a piece in. And when I looked, I thought, my work's as good as theirs. I would have been all, my piece would have been all right in that. So I say to people, just remember, you know, everybody is to begin somewhere and don't be put off by the expertise of others. You go your own way. You may become one of the most famous artists, you never know. Well, I suppose my biggest thing in my quilting career is that back in just pre-COVID, I was awarded a BEM by well, it was the Queen Elizabeth Honours List in those days, and that was for my contribution to textile art in Northern Ireland because I've done a lot of teaching and, pushing and trying to get people interested in things. And I also am one of these people who hate the definition of, is it embroidery? Is it patchwork? You work with textiles, and that's it. That should be enough. That's my view.